Hello, hello, grand day, everybody. And I want to thank everybody that will be tapping in and watching this special edition of the Sacred Light Conversation podcast. And I am your host, Marcus, aka Christolight. And on this episode, we have a very special guest. And our special guest would happen to be my mother, Shirley Robbins. So here we are today on this special mother and son edition of the podcast. And today, you guys will all have the opportunity to learn about the special woman, the queen, the mother of my life.
The one that birthed 8 pounds, 12 ounces in one stitch.
So welcome to an Instagram Live that I hold. And welcome to my podcast, Mom. Thank you for being open enough to share your story today. And thank you for wanting to do this with me. This is very special. And this is also going to be very special for all of my brothers and sisters on the Instagram family that really love what I do and connect with me every week and every day. And I'm sure they're pretty curious about the mother of this special healer and inspirer for all of them. So, how are you feeling?
Honestly, my feet are tired. Back's a little sore, but I'm ready.
All right. Well, my mother is Shirley Robbins, and she is a longtime registered nurse. She is a mother of myself, as well as my sister Kayana, who is 15. And my mother Shirley has quite the story and quite the journey that she has been through throughout her life. And she has overcome and greatly achieved a lot of things basically on her own through a lot of trials and tribulations. And yeah, let's go ahead and begin with diving into who you are. So let's dive into when you were younger and what your childhood was like growing up, and then into your teen years, if you would like to share.
Well, I grew up around a bunch of boys, so it was a lot of mud pies and building forts and ramps and flag football in the snow in the winter. A lot of definitely winter activities. I don't miss the snow, that's for sure. One thing I did experience in my childhood, I was sexually abused by one of my neighbors, so that was awful odd growing up across the street from somebody that abused me for a couple of years, probably around 4 years of age. And every sign and symptom was there of what was going on with me, but nobody ever spoke up or said anything about it until much later on in my lifetime, like late teen years. And then, but it didn't really pertain to what happened to me as a child. It was on a different subject, not related. So, and then many years later, I tried to explain to my mom what happened to me, like the psychology behind it, the effects of it. And basically she told me it wasn't a big deal, and she had been touched by people in her family when she was a child, and that was about it. that wasn't really healing at all, or a good way to try and find
clarity
of what happened, and
wow.
trying to explain what happened to me as a teenager. As a teenager, I was going to school every day. I always did my homework as soon as I got home. There wasn't really any issues. And then once I got older as a teenager, I started hanging around the wrong people. So, that changes a whole lot of factors as a teenager, because at those years, you don't have the mental capacity to say, hey, this isn't what I should be doing. Like, oh, okay, so this is cool, which not at all. Going to parties when you're 13 or 14, and then having sex young because you were abused. Plus, I was missing the father role model most of my years growing up because he was busy. So, but then Marcus came along. 17, I figured out I was pregnant, and then I had him at 18, which changed my life totally, all for the good, because I stopped all that nonsense of partying and smoking weed and drinking, all the dumb stuff that you shouldn't be doing. And then I was on the straight and narrow. I was on the right path. So he changed me for the good. And then after I had him, when I was pregnant with him, I got my GED the same year I would have graduated from high school, which I didn't go to most of high school. I was doing other things. And then after I had him, a little later on, I went to school for the first time, and I completed it. And then I was working in an office. And then we left Syracuse and moved to Ohio because I kept losing my job, because the job market wasn't very good back there. And then I went back to school again, not long after getting to Ohio, and did medical assistant. It was only a 6-month program, so that worked out good.
That's incredible. And wow, to hear all of that for the first time really is it's really interesting. It makes me definitely think a little different about you as a person. And I'm glad you're opening up about it and talking about it, especially here live with everybody. I've come across quite a few women that have dealt with sexual abuse and stuff like that when they were younger that I've been working with, and it's almost like too much of a common theme in this world, which is like really sad to hear. And for you to, tell your mother, my grandmother, about the situation and how it was basically like
not a big deal.
Yeah, not a big deal, and like a normal misbehavior in the family. That's that's really sad to hear. And I'm really glad I get to be a part of healing that from our family bloodline and my energy healing and practices that I do. And I also want to say just tremendous job working through that and building what you've built through the type of experiences and trauma that comes with that. And
I think also
really love you.
Teenage girls need a better support system, because there's so many grown men that just prey on teenage girls. I remember in junior high there was a group of guys that were just past high school age, would have graduated, but they didn't. That always hung around the junior high. So there's way too many grown men in this world that just prey on teenagers, teen girls.
Yeah.
So I think there needs to be a better support system for teenage girls.
Absolutely. And I know you've talked about it a couple times. Isn't there something that you wanted to create? Didn't you want to create like a
women's support group?
Yeah, women's support group. Yeah, if you want to share with them what that would look like, feel free.
I would do it online and meet once a week, and if someone needed more support than that, of course, I would be open to as needed basis. Just because I've experienced so many different things in my lifetime, I can relate, and I understand the psychology behind it, things that happen to women later on in life because of their childhood or because of the relationships they're in later on in life as an adult. So I would definitely be someone they could lean on, someone that they could talk to openly and honestly. And obviously I can give advice because I've been there. So it's not just judging somebody or steering them in the wrong direction.
Yep. And I think you'd be amazing at that, especially because not only those experiences, but you're also a long-time registered nurse as well. So that comes with a lot of experiences in the medical field, ups and downs, good and bad type of experiences with people, and really a whole entire spectrum of different things. So I feel like that on top of it would be a really good addition to holding a support group, because you'd really have a deeper understanding of just how humans can be under trauma and other things, and you just have a really wide experience and knowledge about health and the medical side of things. And here in a moment, I would love for you to touch upon your nursing journey with everybody. And I'm just going to go ahead and see what comments we have here real quick. Kristen. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for supporting me and my mother tonight. Kristen said she loves us both. A brother from across the seas said he was sorry that you went through that. God bless you all. And yeah, thank you everybody else that's just getting here. My mother was just touching on her experiences in childhood and how she had to overcome sexual abuse at a young age. And now we're about to get into her nursing journey. So wherever you would like to start off, feel free to go ahead and touch upon that.
Well, I ended up being a medical assistant for 7 years. 6.5 of those years I did urgent care and occupational health. But then I also got my feet wet at working as an ER tech, and basically whatever they needed, I did. I was a workaholic, basically. And then
yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. I would cancel any plans and immediately go to work, no matter how many days in a row I had already worked. But then my IUD slipped out of place 11.5 years after somebody, and well, that was about 11 years, half a year cooking, baking. And then I was blessed with my miracle girl, which is Marcus's little sister, and
hey, Kiana.
My IUD slipped out of place, so
You want to say hello?
They never ended up taking it out because it totally flipped around. They were worried about dislodging Kiana since she was actually where she was supposed to have been. So then it kept moving and it went up to my placenta, and I was septic and had to have her the day after I turned 30. I had her on Christmas Eve. That was a total different experience than Marcus. Marcus was 5 days overdue. 18 hours of hard labor and back labor.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Ooh.
in one stitch. But her was an emergency C-section, and she weighed 1 pound 11 ounces, and then we spent 4 months in the NICU. But after I had her, I woke up in a dark room, and I didn't have any clue of giving birth or where she was or how she was or how she looked or anything about her. So I woke up in a dark room with a couple doctors standing over me, and they didn't really say a whole lot. And then the next day, they brought me a picture of her, and then it all just continued from there. But that wasn't the best birth experience anybody could ever wish for. But she's here. She's 5'9" now, about to turn 16 on Christmas Eve. And we've overcome a lot of obstacles, and long-term effects are mild, considering how things could have been. But anyways, nursing school. I started working on getting nursing school done before her, but then she came along, and I finally started nursing school at a hospital school. But I remember sitting in one of the waiting rooms after one of her eye surgeries, propped up with nursing books, waiting for her surgery to be over. But that school just didn't work out for me. There was just too much going on at the time. And then I found a small school with no waiting list, no prereqs, and I could just get started. And the school was very hands-on, laid back. They explained things very well, made sure you understood. So it worked very well. So I finally got nursing school done. I finished in 2012, and here I am now. I have a home care experience. I've done that many different times. That's what I'm currently doing now. I have med-surg, which, every med-surg floor in a hospital is different. So various med-surg floors I worked at in a few different hospitals, and that's basically been my nursing career so far.
It's been quite a long one too. Pretty dedicated. And I'd like to touch upon that whole pregnancy experience and everything for me, and being an 11-year-old kid. And first of all, just like hearing that you were pregnant was like really weird at first for me, because I was like, wait a minute, I thought it was supposed to be possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then
99.9% effective IUDs are.
So they say.
Yeah.
Probably with the thousands of dollars that they are too. But yeah, when I heard that, I was like kind of confused a little bit as an 11-year-old kid. And then
plus it only been you for so long.
Yeah, I mean, my whole life I pretty much thought I was going to be an only child at that point. And yeah, we went through the pregnancy, and then around Christmas time came, and I remember specifically I was sitting there playing, is either Xbox, I think it was PlayStation at the time, probably PlayStation, but I remember I was playing PlayStation, and I was playing WWE actually, I remember specifically. I had ramen noodles. And I remember I was sitting there, and then next thing I know, you're like telling Dad that you guys had to go to the hospital, and I'm like...
After I worked that day, of course.
Yeah.
Which everybody thought I had the flu at work, and they wanted me to go home, but that's when I did urgent care, and we were only open 4 hours, so...
Yeah, and I was just sitting there, I was thinking to myself, like, wait, what? Like, what's going on? And then he pretty much said that you guys had to go to the hospital, and I couldn't go with you guys. And then I had to go to Grandma's. And I was just like, okay, what about Christmas? And then, you know, you guys had to go, and you were like, we'll just bring the presents over there, and you can open the presents over there. And I was just so confused at that moment. And ended up going to grandma's, and I remember just kind of sitting there and, you know, just sitting with everybody, watching TV. And, you know, they didn't want to, like, tell me exactly what was going on, of course, because I was an 11-year-old kid. But I just remember being told that you guys might not make it. And I was sitting there, and I didn't know what to think. But I kept my cool about it all. I kept calm. I don't know how I always did that as a kid through situations. I always kept calm about stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I just remember laying in bed too, and just laying there by myself. Like, I think it might have been like the first time I prayed as a kid. And I was just really praying that, like, you guys both would make it, and I wouldn't have to wake up to something going the other way. And woke up and found out that you guys both made it through, and just really curious of when you guys were going to get out, and they said it'd be a few days. So I was just definitely happy to know that you guys made it through that. And yeah, I remember you guys coming home. Well, you coming home by yourself.
Yeah.
And then I remember specifically, like, you had the stitches and all that stuff. And yeah, it was quite the situation, that's for sure. But I kept my cool through it as an 11-year-old kid, that's for sure. And also touching on your nursing journey, I definitely want to say amazing job, amazing work going through all that adversity during your schooling career. Not only did you go through that pregnancy, but you had also went through a divorce with dad. And then after that, you had some pretty rocky relationships.
Right.
And you still made it through and got school done. And I want to say, really good job.
Thank you.
You're a very strong woman for that, that's for sure.
Yeah, when I finished nursing school, well, the last part of nursing school, I was in an abusive relationship for a year. But I still finished with a 3.35. And I'm sure Marcus can touch base on his gut feeling or how he felt about seeing black eyes on his mom. That had to have been an awful feeling. It was every time I looked in the mirror at myself.
Yeah, I'll touch upon that a little bit. For me, so I was probably, 15, 16? Probably 16.
16 or 17.
Yeah, probably like 16. So I was like 16. This was after their divorce, my mom and dad. And she got into a relationship. Well, it was like 2 relationships back to back, really, of abusive men. And there's this one specific relationship that kind of went on for a good while. And this man moved into the house. And not only did he, but so did his son and daughter that were my age at the time. Mm-hmm. And they kind of grew up in like a slightly ghetto-ish type of area in Ohio. Dayton, Ohio, Springfield. And, you know, they brought that type of mentality to the home. And they also were involved with selling weed, and I'm sure involved with other drugs as well outside of there. But during that time, I was just getting into smoking weed a little bit. And on top of that, I had like just got into my beginning phases of selling weed to my friends at school. So like those 2 influences came together. mine and theirs when it came to the selling weed. And then on top of that, just it was really interesting being around them because they had a love-hate relationship with their dad.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't even want to be around him half the time.
But his son acted just like him.
Yeah, and then on top of that, we started selling weed together, and yeah, I'll never forget. There was a night where we were all three in the basement, and we were all down there, and then we heard like some loud talking, and then next thing we know, we heard the stairs. And come to find out, you were what, like pushed down the stairs or something?
Well, there was many different incidents. The one time, it was the middle of the night when he tackled me on the stairs after he jumped over the back of the couch after he finally got home. And drug me by my hair, kneed me in my stomach. I had scratch marks behind my ears from being drugged, and I had a couple black eyes, and I remember the next morning just pulling clumps and clumps of hair from my head. And then there was another time where he sent the teenage kids to Sonic or somewhere, and then sent my daughter to go play a video game or something, and I got roughed up that time too. There was many different times. But the time in the middle of the night, that was the worst time. He was an alcoholic, plus he did drugs too. Besides smoking weed, I'm sure he did other stuff. He definitely had quite the personality.
Yeah, that's for sure.
He would also dictate to me when I was allowed to bathe my own daughter and when I was allowed to take care of her, and yeah, he financially drained me. I guess the reason why I also married him because I felt like I had to, otherwise I was going to be beaten. That was the worst gut feeling in my whole entire life, going to get a marriage license to marry someone than beating you. But luckily, a couple months after I married him, he went to jail for the last time. I finally had enough. Yeah. But I still had to go through the whole divorce process. Annulment, I don't think that really is a thing. But it was pretty easy because he was in jail then. And yeah. And then I found out I was pregnant after he went to jail too. So I did have an abortion because there was no way I was going to have a lifelong tie to someone that was beating me or hide a baby from a woman beater. There's just no way. So.
Yeah, that would have been something else. Yeah, I will say for me, it definitely did kind of leave a little bit of trauma, and what would be some good words?
Well, there's that
I
other.
would say kind of like divide between me and you.
Yeah.
Without really like consciously wanting there to be. There's just kind of like an energetic thing because of those experiences. And yeah, because I remember, I was trying to like express to you how I really wanted you to leave him.
But when you're manipulated.
Yeah, you were just so far into that manipulation that it was almost like a war between me and you whenever I would try to say something.
And everybody ended up arrested because of him, because one day his daughter thought it would be a good idea to call the cops because he wasn't supposed to be around me. because she wanted them gone so she could have her freedom. And then, of course, I protected them because that's what women being abused do. They protect their abuser. And I almost went to jail. I had to bail myself out. And the kids were charged for obstructing official police business for a woman beater. So, never had that experience sitting in a holding cell, waiting to be bonded out, bailed out.
Yeah. And, yeah, I remember how it ended too. That day that he got arrested the last time, I remember me and his son, we had just gotten home from school, and he wanted us to do something. I think it was like cut the grass. And we like went out back, and we were just like, we don't even want to be here anymore. And that's when we disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
So we just like opened the fence and just left. And we went over to my old friend Will Hamilton's house over in Mainville. And we just went over there.
And I was at work. I was doing home care then. And my phone kept ringing. So I ended up leaving work. And then I got to the end of my street. He was sitting there waiting on me. Oh, I had stopped at one of Marcus's friend's house first to see if he was there on my way. And the friend's parents followed me, which luckily they did.
Yeah, it was Nate's house, right?
Right. And then he was sitting at the end of the street waiting for me. I got out of the car. Well, as I was getting out of the car, he pulled me out of the car, and then he had his fist up in the air, and he was about to pound me, but then Marcus's friend's parents walked around, which made him stop. And then the cops were called, and then I just froze in the middle of the street. He wanted me to leave with him. I was not leaving with him. I just froze. I couldn't do it anymore. And then I had a small black eye at that time from an incident a few days before that. So the cops had saw that when they had showed up. So after they were there for a little while, I said, I am not safe. I said, you guys have got to finally do something. I said, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. I'm not safe. So finally they did. They arrested him finally. And then they tased him and had to use their force to get him in the back of the car. But then after he was in the back of the police car, the police had gave him permission to hand stuff over to his kids. So, which one thing was his wedding ring, his wallet, which my stuff was in his wallet because he didn't have any money. So one of my cards was in the wallet, and a safety deposit key was in his wallet, and he instructed his kids what to do. After being tased, mind you, they gave him free reign. So the next morning, well, his father had came and got his kids, and then the next morning, his father, because he was a junior, and his father went to the bank with his ID and the safety deposit box key and emptied out the safety deposit box, which had $5,000 that belonged to me in there because it came from my insurance company for my house. And then the bank tried to tell me there was nothing they could do about it because they were both had the same name, which nobody has the same name. There's junior, senior, the third, blah, blah, blah. Nobody has the same date of birth. That's father and son. And they had very different addresses, and they clearly looked nothing alike, totally different ages. And then finally, my bank would finally do something after I showed them my restraining order. Then they finally told me to keep it a hush-hush and gave me my money back.
Wow, that's interesting. I never heard that.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, wow.
And then after he went to jail the last time, after that incident, He tried contacting me via his sister that lived in, I think, Washington, nowhere near Ohio. And then he tried calling himself, and then through other people. I did not give in. I finally reached my limit, and I was done.
Yeah, quite the period, I tell you.
It was a long year, 2012. Longest year of my life.
Good old 2012, the end of the world. Oh, man. And here we are, no? Here we are. And, yeah, I love you.
Love you too.
Oh, hello, Sarah. Soul Awakening with Sandra, welcome. Yeah, my mom's just been telling her story. She was touching earlier about what she had went through when she was young with sexual abuse in her family. And then she was also... Yep, that's my mother. And then she was talking about her experiences of nursing school and abusive relationships that she had went through after my father. My father was never abusive, but it was the relationships that she had gotten into afterwards. And we were just sharing both of our perspectives of some of the experiences that took place. But yeah, she also talked upon how she has been a nurse for a good while now, and let's see.
Women's support group.
Yeah, and how she would also like to, here in the future, create a women's support group for women that are abused, sexually abused, and other things. So some of you guys may be interested in that. Maybe you guys can talk and get some ideas, because my mother here has been through some experiences in her life, and she's overcome a lot of them. Actually, I'd say all of them, and has been strong and still is strong in providing for the family. But let's navigate into after high school. I graduated high school, and I had already started selling weed to my friends. And then once I got out of high school, I then started going to festivals and getting involved with people like the Grateful Deadheads and people that were going to music festivals all the time. So I started selling other things like psychedelics and Molly, Coke, all that stuff. And I ended up basically getting addicted to just substances in general, nothing specific. And I never got onto like hard drugs like crack, heroin, meth, none of that stuff. But I started getting some charges. I went to jail a couple of times after I got out of high school. And first time was a drug abuse charge because they found some powder on me. And then another time was...
The very first time was when you backed into that car leaving that party. And you told a cop you just smoked a blunt. That was just before just after your 19th birthday.
Yeah. So there's that and the drug abuse. And then, now this is what I really want to hear is your perspective during this. So, I moved to Cincinnati, downtown Cincinnati, in 2015 for like the summer until the winter. Well, actually, it was the summer all the way until about like March of 16. And then March 16, I came back and moved into your house again. And I was on probation at the time. And me and my mom are in the car getting ready to go to my probation meeting. And drink some water. So we're in the car, driving to the probation meeting, and I'm in the driving seat, she's in the passenger. And I remember I went right, old 3C highway, down on the road. And next thing I know, I see flashing lights in the rearview mirror. And it's like a big SUV. Well, it's a van, it turned out. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, why am I getting pulled over right now? I didn't do anything.
Yeah, there was absolutely no reason traffic-wise.
Yeah, so we're sitting in the car. Cop walks up. And next thing you know, he's just like, I'm going to need to see your ID. So I give him my ID. And then he's like, sir, I'm going to need you to step out of the car. And I'm just like, for what? And what did he say? I had like a lane violation or something. So I get out of the car, and then next thing you know, he's like reading my rights, and he tells me to put my hands up on the car, and I'm just like, okay. And then he starts patting my pockets, and then he handcuffs me. And next thing you know, I'll be walked back to the canine van. And I get put in the canine van, and I can hear the dog barking. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm like so confused and lost. Next thing I know, this guy walks up, and it's the guy that I had sold to before. And I'm sitting there like, what in the world is this? And he's got a vest and badge on, and I'm just like, is this really happening to me right now? And I remember my like stomach and everything just dropped, and I was in disbelief. I mean, you know, that's every seller's worst nightmare is getting set up, and that happened to me. And I'm just sitting there, not knowing what to think at all. And I remember him saying, "Do you remember me?" And I'm just like,
I wish I didn't.
Wow. And then we got brought back to the house so they could search the house, and there was nothing in there, luckily. Glad I didn't have anything at that time, because that would just added to it all. Yeah. So I'm kind of curious, what was your perspective like during that pullover and everything?
Definitely a first for me. Never had an experience like that before. Just make sure heart sink and your mind wander too much. And then, but I don't think that was as bad as the time when I took you to go check in and they drug tested you and you tested positive, and then here in handcuffs being clicked on your son while you're sitting out in the waiting room.
Oh, yeah. That was before that.
Two big experiences. Not good ones.
Yeah. I mean, but that car one, that was a big time one. That was the first realization that like prison was about to be something. And yeah, I remember we went to court, paid for a pretty decent lawyer, and he ended up getting me onto probation and putting time over my head, 4.5 years. And I did pretty alright for like the first good while. And then I just didn't change my environment and people, and I ended up smoking and started failing my test because I was smoking. And it became a really, really bad place for me psychologically, because once I had started smoking, it was kind of like giving up at that point, because it took so long to get weed out of your system that I was just like so defeated. And I was just like, well, I guess I'm just going to smoke, so I'm going to go. And it was a really bad cycle. And they kept giving me chances, because weed wasn't like, super
Minor.
big for them. But then next thing you know, I went to a party, and it was someone from high school having a go away party because he was going to the military, and it was like all my high school friends there. And they had coke at the party, and I ended up doing coke there. And I had thought that it would have been out of my system within 3 days, and 3 days came along. Now I'm sitting at the probation office, and I went by myself this time, so this is just me at the probation office. And at this point, you were actually in South Carolina, because you had moved at that point. That was when I had Justin and all those people there. And
which is a whole nother story.
yeah, and yeah, I ended up failing for coke at the probation meeting, and they arrested me there, and I ended up getting sent off to jail, and that was when I went to prison. And then I went to prison for about 11 months, and I got so blessed with a judicial release. And if you don't know what a judicial release is, that is where you go in, and depending upon how long your sentence is, you do a certain amount of time, and then after you do that certain amount of time, you can then write a letter to the judge asking to be let out on probation, and then the rest of the time over top of you. And I did about 11 months. I did like AA and NA. I did a program in there. I was doing a bunch of stuff to help out, and ended up getting really blessed by the judge, and he let me out after 11 months, put me on probation, and I ended up successfully completing probation after
Seemed like
forever, honestly.
A good long time. Because the amount of fines, you have to take care of your fines first, and
The fines were outrageous, like
over $10,000.
I can't even remember. But then, what had happened? Didn't I just like get blessed by them and they just like cut off a bunch of it?
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember how that happened.
It was supposed to have been a few thousand still, and then it just ended up like $375 or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I can't
So we
remember.
just ran with it.
I don't remember how that happened, but God works in mysterious ways.
I don't remember. It was less than 1,000, and then
Yeah, God works in mysterious ways. That's all I gotta say. Because it was thousands of dollars. It is gonna be a while, but they got chopped down, and then my mom helped me out on that.
we were actually in Hilton Head at the time when you found out.
Yeah. And ended up getting off probation in 2020. Yeah, 2020. So I got out in 17, and then 2020 was when I got off probation finally. And wow, what a journey that was. And whew, how was that phone call when I had finally told you this time that I was going to prison?
My heart just sunk, especially since we weren't in Ohio anymore, his sister and I. I just needed to leave Ohio. I had enough. Needed a new place, new environment. So, yeah, it wasn't a good feeling at all. And of course, his sister and I took some trips back there to go see him while he was incarcerated. Which, luckily, I think she was young enough where she doesn't really remember that well. Going to a jail.
Yeah.
To visit her brother.
Mm-hmm. On Easter.
Yeah.
Easter 2017. I actually posted a picture on my page. They've seen it. They've, yeah. But yeah. And then
I was much happier to run back the day he got released.
yeah. That was such a good time. finding out that I was going to get that judicial release, and then ended up being like 2 days before Thanksgiving. Like, what a Thanksgiving that was. That was really cool. And I remember getting out my white beater and sweatpants. Oh man. And then we went to that hotel for the night. Let's see. Where else should we navigate to? Here we go. This is an interesting topic too. So last year, December 2020, I was in my last partnership, and my partner at the time, she was going through so many mental imbalances, pharmaceuticals, smoking on top of it, and dealing with controlling manipulation of her parents throughout her life. Her parents, like, basically feeding her head that I'm like part of a cult and doing all these crazy things. And we came down here for a little bit and lived here at my mom's, and then also went through a pregnancy, and wow, that was a nightmare. And ended up taking upon some very, very ugly things said to me as well whenever you guys weren't here, and ended up losing that child. And I'm just curious, what was that like for you to see me going through a relationship with somebody that was struggling
mentally
that much mentally?
Yeah, every time you turn it around, she was running back home after trying to kill herself, and then ways she was trying to not be pregnant after they both told me around Christmas time that they were expecting. And then one minute you think you're going to be a grandma, next minute you don't know what to think. You don't know what's going on, and many times she went back home after different mental health episodes, and then she'd come back and everything would be good for a little while, and then things just happened over and over and over.
Yeah. And I remember I've been working my ass off being a GM.
Yeah.
Oh my God. 70-hour weeks, 60-hour weeks, getting called in at night because I'd have the passcodes to stuff, and I'd be 30 minutes away because the workplace was 30 minutes. So I'd get up at like 10 o'clock at night, drive all the way up there just to do a passcode. Man, that job was...
Even when you had a day off, you had meetings via phone, or have to order supplies, or the store calling with issues of not mixing up the pizza dough right so it didn't rise, and running out of supplies. Or
welcome in, everybody. Sitting here with my mother, talking about her life story and some of her experiences and some of my experiences as well, getting both of our perspectives. But on top of that, I had to deal with a really imbalanced, toxic relationship, and then that whole pregnancy thing, which is all of that on top of working 60 to 70 hours a week, trying to maintain my own sanity doing that, and
trying to do whatever to make it work.
Yeah.
They lived in my RV for a little while to give them so they had enough privacy, but that wasn't right either.
Yeah.
I don't think it would have mattered if it was a mansion on the beach.
Yeah, we had condos on the beach too.
Yeah.
But I just remember there was one day I had left for work, and issues, and she had gotten angry about something, and she was in a really bad place at that time because she wasn't taking her pharmaceutical meds that she was on. So she was like in that phase where you don't take something, and then like 2 days go along and whatever starts happening mentally. And I remember I had left for work, and next thing I know, she leaves, and I get a call from, what was it, like her mom, I think? I'm not sure if it was her mom or her dad, but it was either one. I think it was her mom. And her mom was just like, yeah, Regina is in the hospital. She tried stabbing herself in the chest while she was on her way up here to New York. And I'm just like, what? And I'm sitting there at work, and I don't know what to think.
Oh, I love this for my cousin. I only see him on Instagram.
Well, she actually said that she was like, she was like missing for a while.
Never forget to put
So apparently she was like in Maryland, halfway between here and New York, because she was like psychologically just not there. And she ended up stabbing herself in the chest, and she did survive. She stayed in New York for a while and came back down to South Carolina. And this time when she came back down, I had quit my GM job, and I went out to Myrtle Beach and was staying in Myrtle Beach. And I basically was there with one of my friends at the time who was trans and going through a transition, and that was a whole mess in itself too. And I ended up being the only person paying for anything at first, and then I asked you to help because it was only me paying for stuff, and I ended up spending all my money, not getting anything back from either one of them. And then it just was a whole entire mess. And then I ended up coming back here, and I went back to Ohio. But
and she left
yeah.
in the middle of the Myrtle Beach time and went back home again.
Yep. And that was the end of that relationship. Yeah. Glad that came to a close because, wow, that whole like year and a half, I put myself through so much loving somebody and trying to be like a hero for somebody that couldn't even get their own self balanced and right. And I hope you guys can take wisdom from that. Don't try to be a hero for people that are not stable enough to be a hero for their own self, because you put yourself in positions where you can get manipulated, you can get projected on, and really take on a lot of things that, quite honestly, you don't deserve. So just be a little wary about that, and just really recognize if you're trying to help people, they're at least trying to help themselves, or they're capable of helping themselves too. Because wow, it can take you on a journey, that's for sure. And I gotta say now, I am very blessed with a beautiful partner, and Kristen, Holistic Butterfly, who I'm sure is still here, has been a really profound and wonderful partner for my life. And I will be in Costa Rica on Tuesday to see her again, and I'll be there for quite a while. I really look forward to that. So overall, how was that experience of just seeing me go through that relationship?
Well, some of it was kind of hidden, and some of it I learned about, or some of it I saw. Definitely an experience of a lifetime for you. And as a mom, that's not exactly what you wish for your child to experience as a relationship, but it happens, unfortunately.
Yeah. Phew. Mm-mm. And yeah. Now you do what? Was it home health aid?
No, not an aid, home health.
Oh, home health.
Although I do clean up my patients when they're sitting in pee. I will do whatever it takes to get my people as right as I can get them. There's no way I'm going to leave somebody sitting in their own mess. Or make sure they have a meal or fluids or what they need.
Yeah. You are very selfless, that's for sure. Very selfless. Is there any other points of your life that you want to share? Anything that we kind of missed out on?
Well, I touched base briefly about how Kiana got here, but that whole day I went to work. I worked the 4 hours. I was supposed to work like 17 hours that day as a pregnant person, as a high-risk pregnancy.
Oh.
But I only ended up working the 4 hours at urgent care. And then I got home and felt pressure. And I knew at that point something wasn't right. And I called my doctor. And he was like, "Who is this?" And I said, "The pregnant one with the IUD. "Oh, yeah." He said, "Go to the hospital." I said, "I know. That's why I'm calling you." So I went to the hospital I was supposed to go to, and he got there, I think just after I did, and they had hooked me up, and the pressure I had felt ended up being contractions. So, and they did my vitals and all that stuff, and my heart rate was elevated. They had gave me Percardia to try and get it down, which didn't work, and then they did my labs and all that, which actually obviously were abnormal. And time went on, and then I remember my doctor asking me if I wanted to give her a chance or not. I said to him, I did my research, and I said, I know 23 weeks is typically the cutoff, whether a baby has a chance or not. So I said, of course I'm going to give her a chance. We already made it to this point. And then they had called for transport, and he asked me what trauma hospital I wanted to go to. I'm like, how am I supposed to know? You're the doctor. So then they picked one for me, and then waited and waited. And then I was on the phone with one of the nurses I had worked with, and as soon as I hung up the phone with her, my water had broke. So, and we were still waiting on transport. They take forever on Christmas Eve, just so you know. And then they were getting ready to do an emergency C-section on me at the hospital there. They were going to get the ultrasound machine and whatever else. And then finally transport showed up just in time. So that way she was still in me, because the hospital I was at, they did not have a NICU. She would have had to been transferred to another hospital after I had her. So luckily they got there just in time. And then I was transported to the trauma hospital. I actually ended up having her at UC in Cincinnati. And I got there, they were asking the whole 50 million questions all over again. Then they were like, forget this, we don't have time for this. So then they started trimming me up, a lot of nicks, a lot of sore spots down there. And then they were going to wait for the residents to get there. Then they're like, no, never mind, we don't have time for that. So then they took me to the OR room, and they transferred me to that little skinny table, the OR table. And the last thing I remember before I had her is having 2 bad contractions back to back and being held down on the table while you're trying to curl up. And it was all no memory after that until I woke up in the dark room. So.
Wow.
And an ambulance ride while you're having contractions is a little bumpy.
Ooh.
But luckily transport got there in the nick of time. Those miracles do happen.
Yep, miracles definitely happen, and miracles seem to be a big thing in this family. And they seem to keep on unfolding, that's for sure.
Yeah, she was supposed to be an Easter baby, but Christmas instead. Christmas Eve.
Yeah, your birthday is the 23rd of December, and hers is the 24th, and then Christmas is the 25th.
And that was a hell of a way to turn 30 the day before.
Gosh. Wow. And, yeah, the miracles just keep unfolding for this family.
And then we spent exactly 4 months in the NICU. Our first 3 weeks were at UC, and the first almost full week she was on a BiPAP, and then she ended up getting pneumonia, and then we were on a vent for 2.5 months. And then at 3 weeks, her patent duct didn't end up closing after 3 rounds at Indocin. So we were transferred to Children's Hospital at that point, and we spent the rest of our time at Children's because there was no reason to go back and forth if she would have needed more surgery. So 3 weeks old, they went in and closed her patent duct. That was her first surgery. And then time went on, and then while she was still on the vent, she ended up with group B strep, so we overcame that. And there was also, in our NICU time, there was plenty of times where she would bear down to poop and she would stop breathing and they'd have to bag her. One of the times, I went back to work a few weeks after having her, and one of the times I was at work and I called there to check up on her, and someone answered the phone. They did not say hello or anything. And then I heard in the background, code blue, pod F1, which was her pod. So, and then the phone hung up. So then I called right back. I said, that is my baby. I need to know what's going on. And then they told me that she had bared down again and they were bagging her. And, but luckily they didn't have to do it too long and she was okay. I can't tell you how many times that happened. And then one of the times later on in her time there, I was there pretty much every day to see her. One of the times while I was there, she ended up stop breathing and they bagged her in front of me, which that's a whole different experience watching your little baby fighting to be here, getting bagged in front of you. So I remember one day sitting in the NICU, I was sitting in one of those big chairs holding her, which was quite a while before I could actually hold her. In the beginning, like the first times, just being able to reach in her incubator and just touch her. And then I remember a nurse telling me, oh, don't rub her skin, it's too thin. I'm like, that's my baby, I'm trying to touch her. And the first time they finally let me change her diaper. But fast forward back to later on in the NICU, I was sitting in one of the big chairs holding her. My chair was turned, so I was facing the back of the pod. And one of the nurses, Angie, came up and, no, it was Tanya. One of them, I remember her face. She had came up and asked me if I needed anything, if I was okay, and I had just turned around and I had tears in my eyes. I said, I just need to be able to take her home. So it was a very long journey. And then finally, towards the end of our time, she had got off the ventilator. She had an NG tube for a while, and then because premature babies do not have that normal reflex of suck and swallow. They have to learn it. And then she had a swallow study done, and she passed that, and then we got the hang of the whole suck and swallow after that. She actually did really good. She must have liked that chalky stuff. And then a week before we finally got to come home, she had her first eye surgery. She had retinopathy from being on the vent and oxygen, and unfortunately they need oxygen, but there's side effects. There's side effects to everything. So, yeah, we had 2 surgeries while in the NICU and a few after.
Ooh. She's a very strong soul, that's for sure.
But we never had a feeding tube or a trach. Thank God.
Overcome and overachieves. Straight A's for a good while. Honor roll. Video Game Design Award.
President's honor roll for most of her junior high time.
Yeah. She's special. Well, I guess we can wrap it up. Definitely very good podcast. Wow, it's definitely my favorite I've done by far. And yeah, just thank you for coming on and doing the podcast with me.
And Mom is finally single. I'm learning how to be single. I don't need that negative male influence in my life.
Yeah, I'm really proud of you for that. That was a cycle for sure. Too many times where I sit there on the phone being like, Mom, you know exactly what to do.
Mm-hmm. But the nurturing person that tries to fix what it's not fixable.
Yeah. So
ladies, if there's red flags, run like hell. You can't fix it.
I learned that myself in my last relationship too.
Yes.
But yeah. And I actually have a special announcement too for everybody out there. I know we have Costa Rica retreats coming up in December and January, but there's actually going to be a mother and son organized retreat coming up in the spring, and I will be releasing details and flyers and information regarding all of that coming up here within December, and it's going to be taking place in South Carolina in the home, and it's going to be a holistic healing retreat hosted by myself, and then my mother will be cooking, and she'll be around as well.
And baking. That's the most important thing.
And baking. So it's going to be some good home mother cooking and baking. And it's all going to be plant-based food. And I'll be doing my practices, teaching courses, and we'll go gem mining and some other things. But I'll release all that information here in due time and let you guys know the prices and all that good stuff. But thank you all for tapping in and supporting and being a part of another one of my Sacred Light Conversation podcasts. And this was the Mother and Son Special Edition. Love you, Mother.
Love you too.
Thank you for doing this. I'm really proud of you.
You're welcome. Anytime.
Alright guys, have a good night. Much love.